Hello. Well, welcome back to the live stream. A little bit of an impromptu live stream because I was actually just coming straight off of work. If you're here, yeah, planning to obviously just cover the deadline stream now. The team is exactly as it is on the live stream template. And yeah, I've just gone for Cancelo to Shaw. Really, that was the only move I went for. Hey, Michael, how are you doing? Did you are you triple captaining as well? TC active on Holland. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I think it's just a super logical move. I would say it's too hard not to kind of have guarantees on future game weeks and kind of skip on Holland here. Is double game week 23 better for? I mean, look, the fixtures are better on paper, but I would say City are very capable of scoring. Martial injury news. He's actually in training today, but Ten Hag didn't really confirm whether he's able to start. But keep in mind, of course, this is a double game week, so there's a high chance I would say that Martial would probably play limited minutes at the worst case scenario versus City, but then should be able to play really the full game versus Crystal Palace, maybe 70 minutes, right? Depending on the Weghorst news and whether he gets registered in time. Keep in mind, of course, the Weghorst hasn't been training with the team, so that also changes things. But going back to double game week 23, is it a better TC? Like, I think, honestly, if you looked at Haaland's stats so far this season and his performance in some of the big games, I'm not really too dissuaded from these two fixtures. I think United obviously have shown that they're a very resilient team, but City will, I would say, are still on track to dominate this United team. And when you look at the Tottenham fixture, they've still given away a lot of open chances. Yes, they completely destroyed Crystal Palace, but when you look at the Brentford game, I thought someone like Tony had an exceptional performance in the central positions, and there are statistics suggesting that Tottenham are very weak in that sort of zone. So I think it's an interesting triple captain. I think you don't have any future guarantees of Colin 23. So yeah, I can have a look at DMs. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Stefan, let's see. So the when you say you might go to Tony instead of Nketiah, I actually think that that's a good play because great fixture. He's ready to start, which was actually confirmed today by Frank, or Thomas Frank rather. And yeah, I don't have any issues going for Eddie in the doubles. Nice. We'll probably get news on Jesus as well, which will also maybe color whether or not you want to get Nketiah, because we actually got slightly positive news on Jesus. He's coming back soon. As far as Smith Rowe, he'll probably be a bit of a problem for players like Odegaard and Martinelli. But yeah, I think Tony is actually a very sensible play. And there's no reason to downgrade fully to Nketiah, who already has a bit of a tough fixture regardless, right? So very sensible there. Is Saka okay? Yeah, I noticed that FPL have actually put a sort of warning sign on over Saka, but actually Arteta said he was okay, seemed ready to play. So I won't be making a move on Saka, although the move I have available, of course, is going for someone like Mahrez. I think that's a play, possible. But I think Saka will play, and simply put, I want Saka for 23. So that's what we're probably going to look at. Derby tactics. Haaland performs better in big games. The simple thing is, I think, first of all, Man City are a team that are fixture proof, and second of all, he's also fixture proof. So then it's actually just about defensive matchups and things like that. And in their best partnership, which is probably Varane Martinez still, I thought Haaland absolutely conquered that game, so I can't see too much changing. Almiron or Andreas, I'd 100% play Almiron first. Do you sell Martial? I think you don't sell Martial if you own him. Keep in mind, this is a double game week. There aren't many other replacing double game week forwards unless you have the ability to go to Kane quite relaxedly, although I don't think that's possible, right? So I think you've got probably the chance of Martial going for the next game, which is Crystal Palace, which is the more important game if you're actually looking into Martial. And so therefore, I don't think he's a sell. Would I buy Martial? I probably wouldn't. Is there any double game week in 21? There's nothing confirmed just yet, but there's going to be a high chance that we still have the Liverpool and Chelsea game. Have Trippier already. Start which two? Botman. I would start Botman for sure. Salah to KDB, Darwin to Kane. I like those transfers for a -4, Jeff. That's a very, very nice set of transfers. Hey, Jax, I hope you're doing well as well. Jesus back in 5 weeks. Yeah, but of course keep in mind that time frame wise, I mean, when is double game week 23? So we've got, I mean, that's like 11th of February, right? Which is actually pretty close to that timeline. And then you've got the City game on the 15th. You're never sure, but yeah, there's a chance maybe Jesus could squeeze in there if his recovery goes well. Obviously, that's just 4 weeks from now, but interesting to think about. Who would you bench out of Martinelli, Almiron, and Mitrovic? I'd probably bench Martinelli and Almiron. It's close though. I think Almiron and Mitrovic are close. I think I'd probably prioritize Martinelli first, and that's kind of reflected in my team. So if I went for a further -4, let's say if I went Ederson, obviously Kepa would go away from my team. But if I went for something like, if I brought Ake in instead of Patterson, then I'd probably have benched Mitrovic. Why triple captain Haaland? I mean, first of all, he's Haaland. Second of all, I think he's still fixture proof. People have done analyses on his performance in big games. I don't think it's a huge problem. Still Salah for KDB for a -8. I mean, that single transfer should surely just be a -4, right? So you should be thinking about it from that perspective. If that's the case, and I think it's still worth it. Triple captain Harry Kane. I'm not opposed to it, but I think there's a bit of a risk. We just saw last week a triple captain forward on 4 yellow cards. This is quite a testy match as well. High chance he could get a yellow card, excuse me. So I think probably would sidestep the Kane triple captaincy. With Stones out, has Cancelo's chances increased of more minutes? I don't think so, right? Because you still have Laporte who's ready to play, and you've got a Kanji who can play in the center back positions. And so they could still play a structure of what is preferred right now, which is Rico Lewis, then playing for Ake, and then Akanji, plus Laporte. You've got, and then I think when you're talking about, let's say, the left back position, I'm not really sure. I don't think we've seen him play Cancelo, Rico Lewis yet, and I'm not sure if Pep will actually like to play that structure. The one thing, of course, is Walker has looked good, at least when he plays him right back. So that's the main change. Thank you, by the way, for the lovely comment. Best Cucurella placement for maximum 7 mil. You already have 3 City players. So I think a simple cheap replacement is going to be Botman, 100%. But then you also have the opportunity to go into potentially a second Man United defender, because Man United will have more than likely very, very close together doubles. So you could go for that, and you've already got your City players. Another option transfer-wise, if you were looking at defensive positions, is probably, if you go this week, right, for someone like Doherty, I think it's quite interesting because at least you're kind of tapping into a double game week player. And the fixtures after this for Tottenham aren't necessarily bad at all. So if you want to consider that a little bit more of an outside shout, you could obviously opt for that. Hey Soldier Boy, hope you're doing well. I'm doing well myself. Who is the higher ceiling this week, KDB or Mahrez? Obviously KDB has a higher ceiling, because I think you have to think about how many minutes KDB can play. So KDB is more than likely going to play, I would say, 85 to 90 minutes both games, whereas with Mahrez, we know there's a high chance, even though he starts both games, that he can maybe only play 140 minutes out of the maximum kind of 180 or even 200 minutes, depending on how things are going. Hey Mosen, good evening to you. Getting late in London. Just finished my work, so I was actually able to stream a little bit later than usual, but here I am. Mahrez to Kulusevski, let's go. Sorry, when you're saying Mahrez to Kulusevski, are you going out of Mahrez? Because I think Mahrez is actually quite a good pick to keep. Bueno or White, Kepa or Ward? I would play Kepa over Ward. That's simply what I've done myself. As far as Bueno over White, I'd probably pick Bueno over White myself. Mitoma for Andreas, I think it's a good transfer, but I probably would execute it next week. I'd probably choose to pick Mitoma and play him next week instead. You meant Mount. Yeah, I think that's much better transfer, of course. Is -12 ideal, or should I just wildcard? I think -12 is not ideal, and I don't think you need to wildcard. I'd probably have a look at your team and try to consider whether you can actually reduce that hit to -4, -8, because I would say focus on the priority players. Let's say you want to get into Kane. How much is that going to cost to get Kane? Is it a -4? Is it a -8? I highly doubt it's going to be a -12. So I would say you don't need to try to make sure that every player in your team has a perfect game week this week, because you need to think about the long term. And some of the players in your team, for example, if I look at my team myself, I've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, who doesn't necessarily have a good fixture. Brighton is actually a very, very tough game, especially away from home. But then Chelsea, Wolves, and Everton are all really, really lovely games to own Trent. But this week, it's not a good fixture. But if I was thinking about the doubles purely, I would be transferring him out. I don't think that makes too much sense. Do you think there are other opportunities to use the triple captain? Absolutely. Let's say if Man United get the double game week in 22, you've got a good chance, I would say, of playing the Rashford triple captain. Elsewhere, I would say you could probably look at 23 once again for Haaland. Hopefully he's still fit. As far as starting Bueno, Dean, or Andreas, I'd probably start Dean, to be honest. I think it's either between Dean or Bueno. Obviously, West Ham have been a very, very poor team from the offensive point of view, but I wouldn't give too much credit to Leeds as well. I know they're capable of scoring, but then Dean, I think, is an overall more exciting pick. And with Bueno, you never know. He could be someone who could be subbed off early, which was what we've seen before as well. And so some people could actually bite a little bit of damage, right, if he gets like a 59-minute sub. Thoughts on starting Ward over Kepa? I'm not too tempted by it because I think Leicester have looked terrible. The last time, however, that Leicester played Nottingham Forest, I thought Nottingham Forest were shocking in terms of converting some of their opportunities. Brennan Johnson specifically was really poor, but I still think that they're able to score. We've also seen a little bit of a steady improvement in terms of Nottingham Forest and their attack, specifically in terms of goal conversion compared to their kind of offensive statistics. So I do actually like Kepa versus Crystal Palace because so far Crystal Palace have been pretty dismaying. Darwin to Tony for a hit. I wouldn't mind that transfer, but I don't think it's fantastic. How many points counts as a good triple captain? Triple captain is probably the worst captaincy chip in the game. Last year, a lot of us got probably 24 points worth of a triple captain. I would say anything above 20 is probably a good tally for a triple captain. Yes, of course, some people have had some crazy hauls in the past, but I think 20 is like is what you'd like to kind of accept. And probably towards the high end. I think Foden to Mahrez makes sense. Saka news, he's ready to play as far as I understand. Arteta said he's okay, and I can't really see, so when you look at, let's say, this Arsenal team structure, how important the Spurs game is, I can't really see Saka being rotated out of this team. There's not enough depth in terms of Marquinhos. I don't think he'll be depended upon by Arteta, so I think Saka will be ready to play. He's already been confirmed as being okay. If you think Arteta is kind of frauding out, that's probably a different story. But I think I'd probably play him and not risk a transfer away from Saka because double game week 23 is exactly why you want to keep him. Salah to KDB for -12. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that transfer. Wan-Bissaka for Cancelo. Watch out for Wan-Bissaka though, because there is an opportunity that if Lisandro Martinez plays in left centre back, that Shaw could play left back and then Malacia could also play right back. I agree with exactly what Edkins is saying regarding Saka as well. As far as Botman or Cancelo, I'd probably go for Botman. Yeah, I think it's very reasonable. Your question for Tony for Nunez, I think, is a very, very asked question this week. I'm not sure if I really like Tony for a hit, but I think Tony as a single transfer from Darwin makes sense. Would you sell Martial or Wilson this week to get Kane? I'd probably sell Wilson. I'd sell Wilson. I've kind of answered the half your question, Becco. Ferguson for Mitro. I don't love that. I like Tony, but I don't like Wan-Bissaka, if that helps you. Would just Martinelli to Mahrez? No, I wouldn't do that. I'd probably hold on Martinelli. First of all, the attacking numbers for Martinelli were really good. If you had to ask me who was probably the most exciting player in the Newcastle game, I would say it was Martinelli once again. So I believe Martial will start. I don't think I'm not 100% over the City game, but I think there's a high chance that he does play versus United. I'm sorry. Apologies, versus Crystal Palace. Play Kepa or Ward. I think Kepa is more interesting. Shaw, I'd still pick Shaw over Ake. So a lot of expected values, kind of point projections, will probably prefer Ake to Shaw. But I really do prefer Shaw to Ake. I just think that, yes, on balance, City might be able to get a clean sheet versus two tough opponents. You'd probably say 1 out of 2. But with the kind of form that United have showed, I think there's a high chance that they keep a clean sheet versus Crystal Palace. So that's a good shot. I think Martial is probably going to play maximum 90 minutes this week. But remember, it's a double game week, so it doesn't really matter if he skips on the City game. What about the cheap Man City guy, Lewis? Yeah, Rico Lewis is interesting, but keep in mind, of course, that there is a little bit of depth in that position that he plays in terms of right back with Walker. With Cancelo now, I think he's almost third priority on the right back position, and then in the left back position he's probably deputy to someone like Ake. But if Pep really enjoys playing Rico Lewis, I've not still yet seen Rico Lewis and Cancelo play together, so maybe there's a chance you could see something like Laporte left back as well, which we've seen in recent memory. So I do like Lewis, but I think I prefer Ake first, and then I prefer Akanji after. You have a strong feeling that he will play Marcelo both games. Who are we talking about in terms of Marcelo? Hey Fran, how are you doing? Well, you keep getting a feeling to gamble your captaincy to Rashi. Look, I would say always, as an FPL manager, trust yourself. Rashford's in great form. And obviously, yes, we saw an absolute stinker from City, but keep in mind, of course, that was pretty much the B team. I'm not super confident on a Rashford captaincy. I'm not captaining Rashford. If you wanted to captain Rashford, I'd do it in double game week 22, and I'd probably triple captain him there if you like Rashford that much. Why is Martial flagged? Because of the press conferences where Ten Hag said that Martial would be assessed after training today. So he's not nailed to start versus City, but I think Martial will most likely play versus Crystal Palace. I think that's probably what's going to happen. Triple up on Newcastle defense with Botman / 1 City defense / get Ben White. I don't really like tripling up on Newcastle defense. I think I like a double of Newcastle defense. I used to own triple Newcastle defense in the past. So from game weeks 10 roughly onwards, I was owning triple Newcastle defense. I'd say 2 is probably the limit. Are you going with the triple captain? I am doing it, yeah. Is it mostly to do with... Yeah, I think, first of all, the point really is to say that Haaland, I don't think, has bad fixtures on paper. And the second point is, yeah, less congestion in terms of cup fixtures, less congestion in terms of you never know whether he'll be injured heading towards double game week 23. So that's going to be a lot of things to think about. Brighton assets for this week against fragile Liverpool. I like the idea of that. But I think Matip and Konate are a decent pairing. Would the priority for me to be to bring in Brighton assets? I'd say probably not. I'd probably bring in Brighton assets next week, simply because a lot of teams have doubles, so I can't see the value of necessarily going ambitiously towards a Brighton asset. Unless it's specifically to, let's say, go to Mitoma and maybe reduce the amount of money you're spending in the midfield, therefore to upgrade someone like Kane. If that makes sense to you, then yeah, I'd go for that play. Game week 25 is going to be painful for people with triple Newcastle. Yeah, that's another tough thing to think about too. Keep in mind that actually owning triple City is really beneficial, because now that they've lost to Southampton in the Cup, they're going to be playing in blank game week 25. So owning City players is going to be super beneficial for that week. You already took a -8. You've taken Cancelo, Salah, Darwin to Kane, KDB, Ake. I would not do... Ooh, you haven't made the transfer to Shaw. I would actually probably do that transfer for Shaw, but I would... Yeah, a little bit of a crazy -12, but I do like that. I'd probably have to ask you who you're replacing Shaw with first, though. By the way, thank you guys so much for joining the stream today. If you could like and also subscribe, that'd be really appreciated. I usually run a cheat sheet series where I overview the best picks in FPL and my kind of opinions on them, and how the fixtures in advance would be kind of tackled by some of the best players in the game. As far as team selection videos, I'm always up to date with that on a weekly basis. And then we're going to do live streams now that I'm actually back full time in London. So thank you guys so much for watching. As far as is Darwin confirmed out? Yes, he's confirmed. I wouldn't say he's confirmed out. I think it's pretty much 80 to 90%. Jurgen Klopp's precise comment, I think, was that Darwin would be back soon. And the suggestion there really is, I think Darwin's a bit touch and go because he's not in training. And he said, and I think Klopp also said that Darwin would be assessed if he was able to make it to training today. So I think that it's quite precautionary, to be honest, with Darwin. What we saw before as well, if you guys remember and cast your mind back to the Liverpool-Newcastle or the Nottingham Forest game when they lost 0-1, that was a similar situation, right? Darwin was potentially with a kind of knock, and Liverpool chose to be a little bit cautious with that fixture, and Darwin didn't play. So I think there's a chance that happens again. Maybe worst case scenario that Darwin plays, or best case scenario that he plays 20-30 minutes. I don't really see Darwin playing too much. Darwin, Cancelo to Kane and Lewis. I think that's a lovely set of 2 transfers. Triple captain Haaland. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Are you kind of questioning why I've gone for that play? Is that kind of the question mark? Any thoughts on Rodrigo? I think he's a fantastic asset. I think he's one of the best picks to go for currently. I'd probably only really go into Rodrigo if I was operating something like a wild card this week, because I'm not going to single transfer into a Leeds player immediately, because I think Aston Villa still look relatively good. But Rodrigo has great numbers, and he's definitely someone that I would think about going for. Specifically, if I also had enough coverage of maybe a team like Arsenal and needed a fifth midfielder. No worries, Kai. But I think I've answered your question as well. Why am I triple captaining Haaland? Well, simply put, I think it's a double game week with Haaland. He has shown that he's very capable of scoring in tough games. He's specifically scored versus the United defense and done incredibly well there. And then when it comes to Tottenham, I think we have seen a bit of a drop off in terms of the Tottenham defense. Their defense numbers have slowly skidded a bit, and the kind of zonal threats that they're actually suffering from is mainly from the central position. So I think that's a good sort of indication that Haaland is going to be an interesting pick to go for. Is Darwin definitely now? I would say 80 to 90%. Liverpool usually aren't a team to risk players, but I can't confirm anything. I would say he's probably, if I own Darwin, let's put it that way, I would probably transfer him out. Do you think Mitchell to Wilson is worth a transfer? I don't think so. I would roll or do a different transfer. Cancelo to Ederson swap around for free next week. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because I think if your priority transfer is Mitchell to Wilson, I probably wouldn't execute that move. I actually would prefer Mitchell to Tony, because keep in mind that Wilson is someone who has some question marks over him. He probably also has to deal with Isak coming on for minutes. There's a chance that he could be, let's say, taken off 60, 70 minutes, which is what we've seen from Wilson recently. I don't really like taking Mitrovic out of my team, though, and that's kind of why I plan to keep him in my team. The way I would have gone for Kane was to go for a -8, and I didn't really want to take that sort of ambitious move there, so I've not gone for that. Just locked in Harry Kane. Good luck, man. Good luck with the triple captain. Any Saka news? As I said, Arteta said he was going to be okay. Although thanks to that guy, I'm probably going to improve the visuals. It was just a very, very rough mock-up, but I will be planning to improve the visuals over the course of the week, getting an animation in that kind of top right corner of the screen, and then just in general improving the graphics. If you could actually help me maybe provide some suggestions, I'd be very happy to take them. You did Darwin to Kane and Foden to Rodrigo. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think any kind of transfer away from Darwin into Kane is just fantastic because you're capitalizing on the double game week. You, first of all, don't even have too many expected minutes for someone like a Darwin. And yeah, I'd probably do that. I'm going to go with your guts today. Yeah, fair enough, Z. I wish you the best of luck, and I do admire you for going with your guts. I think there's a couple of times this season where I've gone a little bit against the grain. It hasn't necessarily paid out for me so far, but at the same time, I don't think I've been too hurt other than maybe missing out on the Haaland haul versus Brighton. What to do with I think if you own Martial, I'd keep him. If you don't own Martial, I'd probably sell him. That's my opinion on Martial. Sorry, as in if you don't own him, I wouldn't bring him in. That's kind of my thought on Martial. I'd keep him. Because I don't think the press conference comments from Erik ten Hag were actually that damaging. Why is everyone taking out Cancelo? Is he for sure? I mean, we've seen already a couple of games where he's benched. We saw him play 45 minutes and then be subbed off for Rico Lewis. I think he's clearly not one of the priority defenders in the team, and therefore I think he's worth a transfer out because the value of Cancelo really comes from him being nailed. I mean, he's a 7.2 asset at the end of the day. And if you can get the same value or more minutes from someone who's like 5.4 million in Ederson, I think that's probably the first argument. And then looking at some of the other defenders who also have abilities to get more involved in terms of open play, such as through set piece headers, such as an Ake or a Stones, then there is value there in going away from Cancelo. And if Rico Lewis is as sort of as advertised by Pep, because Pep has shown a lot of preference towards Rico Lewis, then that's a 3.9 million asset. That's really telling you Cancelo doesn't have much value. I wouldn't look specifically at the points that Cancelo has earned, but just specifically what has been said about his peers and the people competing in the same positions as him to make that decision. So 2 free transfers: Nico Williams to Shaw or Cucurella to Shaw. I love Nico Williams to Shaw. The next transfer is Tony Nunez to Tony or Martial. I'd actually probably go for Tony, right? Because Martial's a little bit of a doubt, and I think Tony's just been incredible this season. Martial, one of the issues with him, if you're bringing him in this week, is that in the future you probably have to transfer him out for Weghorst, and by double game week 22, if that happens for United, I'm not actually sure if Martial would still be holding a starting position in that team. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that could be, you know, a genuine contention that he could lose that spot in the team. Whereas with Tony, maybe you have a similar situation because of the FA Cup kind of potentials, the potential of him getting suspended. But for now, that doesn't seem to have happened. So I think you can be safe with owning Tony. I'll probably actually add Tony back to the cheat sheet this week now that he's confirmed fit and he's ready to play. Ake, Salah, and Tony for free, or Botman, Mahrez, and Kane minus. Oh, I really like the Botman, Mahrez, and Kane -4, Kai. Would you rather start Sanchez or Ward? I'd start Ward for sure. Because Sanchez is interesting when he plays versus a weaker defense, but this Brighton team under De Zerbi haven't kept many clean sheets. And then second of all, I mean, the only points we saw Sanchez actually get was when he saved a penalty, right? So not too confident in terms of Sanchez overall. And then when we actually look at a team like Leicester, yes, they're pretty terrible from the defensive point of view, specifically after the World Cup restart. But you've got an opportunity here to play versus Nottingham Forest, who are not the most clinical of teams. Cancelo, Kepa to Shaw, Ederson for -4. I like that move. What I've actually done, Malcolm, is that I've gone for Cancelo to Shaw myself. I didn't really go Kepa to Ederson yet. And I just don't really want to execute that move. I just feel like a lot of people are going for the City defense to kind of hedge against other people who are taking the same equivalent hit. But are the City fixtures that good? I don't think so. Hey, Fionn, hope you're doing well. Who to bench, Martinelli or Mitrovic? I'd probably bench Mitrovic. Should I keep Darwin or do Darwin to Tony? I like Darwin to Tony, but I probably wouldn't do Darwin to Tony for a hit, is my contention. Cancelo to Kepa. Sorry, Cancelo plus Kepa to Gabriel and Emerson. You mean Ederson? I actually like those moves, but I'm not really sure why you'd like to go Gabriel this week. So I like going Kepa to Ederson. I think that's a nice transfer. But if I went out of Cancelo, I'd probably go for, first of all, another United defender and then maybe a City defender. Samar, so you said, I'm really not sure what to do. You're guessing Rashford for Foden with the free transfer. Should you take a hit? Yeah, I think Rashford's fantastic, yeah. And if you can go Darwin to Kane from that move, I think that makes sense. But do you really think Chelsea will keep clean sheets? Look, Chelsea were pretty bad versus Fulham, but I think we also have to contextualize that by saying Fulham are actually performing like a top team. They're top 7 right now, deservedly so. Crystal Palace haven't looked particularly good from the defensive point of view lately. I think the question really is, do you want Ederson now? And do you want that kind of money in Ederson hold up in your team? If you don't mind it, I think you can go for Ederson today. But I think specifically this fixture and this matchup versus Crystal Palace, I think Kepa's actually got a decent chance of getting a clean sheet versus Crystal Palace. Will Martial start? It seems like it's a bit of 50-50 gaming legend, so I would probably say that he's going to play in the Crystal Palace game. What Erik ten Hag said was that he'll be assessed today in training, but he was training yesterday, so that's actually already a bit more of a positive sign than someone like Darwin. Hey FPL Flames, hope you're doing well. Nice emoji. Play Odegaard or Martinelli? I'd probably actually play Odegaard, right? A little bit more of a differential. You're going against the grain in terms of effective ownership, and why not? Play to Odegaard, Martinelli. I'd probably bench Martinelli there. I kind of just like the gamble of Martial versus Crystal Palace. Hopefully he's going to be fit there. Man City were better defensively in false 9 system. Crowded the midfield, tough to break down. I agree with that, Fionn, as well. But at the same time, we saw Holland have an absolutely blistering start to the season. And I think most of us before the World Cup would have said they look incredible from the attacking point of view. So, yes, of course, there's going to be one-off games where City look poor. And Pep's had one of the biggest upsets in his life in terms of, I guess, getting knocked out so early in a cup fixture versus Southampton, a team in 16th place. But look, Pep's played with a lot of teams before where he's had traditional centre forwards and he's done well. And I think we also saw that in the start of the season. I think maybe we're getting a little bit too carried away with one sort of blip or a kind of 2-week blip period for City, which has always happened in previous seasons. It just so happened that I think they didn't have necessarily the same amount of blips this season, but usually what happens is City start the season poorly, then they actually ease back into the Premier League and start cruising. And maybe you could argue that the World Cup restart has taken a little bit away from that kind of hot start that City had. And yeah, of course, we can see Arsenal also doing incredibly well on the table. I know City, of course, are a little bit off projections when you compare it to their previous kind of runs in terms of getting 97, 100 points, that sort of thing. But I still think City are very, very close. The underlying stats still support them as being a top team. Is triple captain worth it this week? I think so. Up to you, though. No worries about answering. I think Salah to KDB for a hit is sensible. Mahrez and White versus Mitrovic and Ake. That's a good question. I'd probably go for... It's a weird one. I don't really like White this week. I'm not really sure what the comparison is. I mean, I love Mahrez and I love Ake. I guess you're probably asking for transfers in terms... Is that because White and Mitrovic are players that you'd probably play in these kind of scenarios? I kind of like Mitrovic and Ake, I suppose, because I just really don't like White, whereas I think both Mitrovic and Ake have some value to you this week. Mitro and Cancelo to Rico Lewis and Kane. I think that's a fantastic double free transfer. That's something that I've seen a lot, and I think it makes sense. United and Spurs aren't low-tier team. There should be a future game week with the easier opponents. Yeah, but what is the suggestion that Holland is not capable of scoring versus top-tier teams? If you kind of get my point. And I think similarly, I don't think Holland's record versus low-tier teams, as you suggest maybe other teams would be, has been spectacular. I mean, keep in mind one of his blanks was actually versus Bournemouth, a team that most people love playing versus. And he also blanked last week too. Yes, of course, that's versus Chelsea, but I think right now the way we consider Chelsea, we'd probably consider them to be a low-tier team based on form. I've got Bruno Fernandes. Is it worth to go De Bruyne? I wouldn't say so, no. I think you could probably skip the De Bruyne move, frankly. I saw a graph that said that Haaland actually plays better versus good teams. The low block is problematic for him. I agree with that. I think the low block is overall slightly problematic for City in general, right? Because it's less so whether Haaland's actually able to score versus those teams. It's more about how problematic it is for his teammates to actually create chances for him to score, because it's not like it's his job to create his own chances. In the system. Sometimes you'll obviously see that Haaland drops back. He'll actually feed the ball back to the midfield, and he's very strong in terms of holding the ball up, and he's very good at kind of going back and forth in terms of making that kind of quick run and then being able to actually identify the correct attacking position to run into. But maybe you could also argue that because the low block exists, that there's less space to run in behind, and actually that's why Haaland is more interesting. Would you transfer in Mudryk if Arsenal sign him? Absolutely not. I'd wait, because for me it's a very similar. Stones is not playing. He's confirmed that he's not going to start. Would you transfer to Mudryk? I would say no, because I think it's a similar position to Cody Gakpo, where for me, when you have a new player like that, and there's already kind of a starting three in terms of Nketiah, Martinez, Saka, and obviously Mudryk isn't going to necessarily replace Nketiah, who probably is the weak link in that kind of front three. You could even consider it to be a front four with Odegaard. I would say Mudryk is probably going to start off as a bench player, so I wouldn't bring him in immediately at all. Tony or Mitra, I'd go for Tony. If it was an option this week and there wasn't any -4s involved, I like Tony. I think Holland could do well tomorrow. Would be an open game, 4+ goals. I mean, 4+ goals is a bit of a reach. I'd love if he could score 4+ goals. Or you mean 4+ goals for City or between both teams? Like Gakpo or Rodrigo. I'd actually probably play Gakpo. Should I risk keeping Martial or replace... Because keep in mind that if Darwin's unfit, there's probably a super high chance that Gakpo plays. Should I risk keeping Martial or replace him with Ivan Toney? I would actually play Martial. I'm keeping Martial 100%. Transfer out Kane to KDB and Salah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Wait, transfer out Kane? I wouldn't transfer out Kane at all. Sorry, I misread that one. Ake and Kane for Darwin and Cancelo. Yeah, very, very sensible set of transfers, Alan. I'd probably do that. Mount to Mahrez for -4. I think that's sensible. De Bruyne for Salah and either Mahrez for Andreas or Odegaard for Andreas. I like Odegaard for Andreas. Nah, I would actually probably say Mahrez for Andreas is the best transfer you have there. -4 for James to Ake or play Ben White. I'd probably go -4 for Ake. Cancelo, I would say Cancelo in terms of transfers, priority for me would be Shaw, then it would be Ake, then it would be Botman, and then maybe Rico Lewis if you really want to save money for, let's say, another transfer to save up for. I think Cancelo to Shaw is super sensible. It's actually the move that I went for myself. Because keep in mind, if you're going Gabriel next week, he's playing versus United, so what's the point of saving that transfer? Whereas with Shaw, at least you've got the Crystal Palace game. I can't see really the value of going for Gabriel next week, if that makes sense. Is Andreas Mahrez with 5 starting mids and bench Mitro for -4 worth it? You've got Holland, KDB. Maybe you actually could skip the -4, frankly. Transfer out Cancelo or Foden. I'd probably transfer out Cancelo actually first. You just did Ake and Kane for Darwin Cancelo. You could go triple captain Holland. That's what I'm doing, but it's up to you. I mean, a lot of people are suggesting, of course, that you want to have Holland versus weak teams. I actually don't think he's shown that he's poor whatsoever versus good teams. So I'm going for it now, but there's a chance you can play the triple captain on Holland in game week 23. By the way, guys, how is the actual audio in the video? Because I got a new kind of microphone arm stand, so I'm hoping that you guys can hear me well. I'm going to play triple captain this week, indeed, yeah. Predicted points for Kane versus Tony. I mean, Kane's playing 2 games, so that's going to be really tough. But then also keep in mind that you need to, when you're doing predicted points, you need to kind of bank in the percentage chance that he gets a yellow card versus Arsenal, which means he gets suspended for City. I'd probably say he's going to get 10 points overall in this game week. And then Tony, I'd probably say, I mean, Tony could absolutely smash it this week. I think it's very similar, frankly. But the question of, I think the thing is Kane has a higher ceiling is my point. Because when I'm doing predicted points, I mean, Tony maybe predicted points of 8 is reasonable. But I think going back to Kane, the point is he could play a double game week. And worst case scenario, he plays a single game week, which is versus the better transfer. Conte has a decent record versus Pep Guardiola. Yes, I agree with that. I mean, if you watched last season when Kulusevski came back, I think that's a key thing with the City versus Tottenham game, that Kulusevski's back in the team, which is actually what was confirmed by Conte in the press conferences. And Kulusevski was, for me, the biggest difference maker in that game. Of course, we saw Son get slipped in very, very early in that game and he scored a goal. But City were definitely crushed by Kulusevski. But I think right now, Pep's had enough time to kind of game plan for this Tottenham team. I don't think they've improved. I'd start Cucurella over White, simply. It's not the greatest gamble, because keep in mind that Cucurella was benched the last game. Maybe I'd actually start White. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm just thinking about it. Maybe Cucurella could be benched, so I'd probably start White. Got some Graham Potter at Chelsea. I think I would only really reserve judgment on him until he has a transfer window. So I would say I don't have too many thoughts on him. I think he's really unfortunate with the injuries. Chelsea are really struggling. Look, they just had Zakaria injured and João Felix as well, with a masterclass there with a red card. Yeah, I am triple captaining Ralph. Will Cancelo play? Probably not very much. I think he's only going to play 30, 40 minutes tops. How good of an asset do you think Saka is? I think he's fantastic. We've been a little bit unfortunate that we're not actually getting the penalties that we deserve. You know, hint, hint, the Newcastle game where he should have really got a penalty. But I do like Saka, and then you've got double game week 23. So I think overall he's one of the best assets in the game. The question is whether Odegaard or Martinelli are actually good enough to kind of cover him, and based on their season so far, you'd probably suggest that Saka's not essential. So I think that makes sense to even hold that argument. If you believe Saka's not essential, I think that's totally fair. You could be going for Odegaard instead. I think that's the interesting thing about Saka and why I might like to move. Why can't I make the changes? I think you can just restart your stream or your website, because I think that should work. If you don't triple captain Holland, you don't know if you should hope for him to score. You probably shouldn't, actually, because in reality, right? Let's say if his effective ownership is 200%, doesn't really matter. But then obviously you'll probably be bummed out that you missed out on the triple captaincy if he does well. So that's the interesting scenario. I think a lot of people. Do you think there's a lot of people going for a Rashford captaincy this week? I am triple captaining Haaland, actually. You can see it on my screen. So if you have a kind of white sort of symbol on your captaincy, if it's like a white outline, and then black text in terms of the font, then that's actually the sign of the triple captaincy being locked. So I have triple captained Haaland. Hey Notorious, how are you doing? Nice to see you, man. Hope you're doing well, Rezul. ZT, will Martial play? Eric Ten Hag said that he's going to be assessed in training today, so you need to actually watch out for that situation. Rashford cap here we live in. I think the interesting thing about Martial is he's not sort of got a kind of long-term injury. He's got probably a very short-term knock. So the best case scenario for Martial, or kind of a middle scenario for me, is he misses the City game, but he actually starts the Crystal Palace game. Walker -4, seller keep. I would probably keep Walker. Sadly, yeah. Sell Trossard for Odegaard. I like Odegaard for sure. Darwin can sell out for Kane. I would go for Kane and Shaw, frankly. So the thing is, Sporting, I owned Cancelo before today, before the press conferences, and I've moved from Cancelo to Shaw myself. A lot of websites like FPL Review and expected value websites will suggest Ake is the better transfer, but I really think, look, I've made the mistake of not owning Shaw, and I'm not going to make it again, so I'm going for Shaw. Almiron versus Martinelli versus Odegaard. I'd probably go Odegaard and Almiron. If you want to have a nice little balance, I think Odegaard covers Martinelli, and then Almiron. Fulham still haven't been the best team defensively, and I think there's a good chance that he can do well there. But you could also go for Martinelli and Odegaard if you purely want to go for points and you really want to gamble on a really good Arsenal kind of high-scoring North London derby. Do you think Tony will play? Tony will play 100%. It's been confirmed by his manager, Thomas Frank, that Tony is fit to start and he will start. The only concern really about Tony is about that kind of FA charge. And a lot of people have been talking about Mbeumo this week, but you can see clearly where Tony starts, he's not going to be a very interesting asset to own. Why Ake and not Laporte? So I think Laporte has under at least Pep's mind become maybe second choice to someone like Akanji, and then Ake actually gets to play left back, which I think is a little bit more interesting in terms of his expected minutes. Have a look at, for example, how many minutes Laporte has played in the league so far. Keep in mind also that in the previous cup game when they lost to Southampton, that Laporte was playing 90 minutes, so there's a high chance that you could see Ake and Akanji play in the Premier League as starters. City bias with Haaland low key. That's why peeps don't prefer. I don't have a City bias at all, but I think I've got a Haaland bias, if you want to say that. Martial out. I think he's got a concern, but I don't think Martial is fully confirmed to be out. Voting for Grealish. I'd probably prefer Mahrez over Grealish. Is Stones healthy? Stones is not healthy for the first game. He might be ready for the second fixture, but he's already going to miss the first one. So I think the value of going for Stones as a transfer is lost. As far as -4 for Tony for Martial, I wouldn't go out of Martial. I don't think Martial is actually going to miss the Crystal Palace game, unless I'm wrong. I think if you own Martial, you shouldn't be selling him this week. I think there's a high chance he plays. You need a centre back. I'd probably go for Ake first. Ake is my priority centre back, then Akanji from the City team. Who do you think Saka? Do you think Saka will play? I would say 95% sure that Saka will play. Not worth doing Stones to Ake -4, right? You got White though. It's a good question. I'd probably not do it because I think there's a higher chance that City keep a clean sheet versus Tottenham. Yes, I know Tottenham have done incredibly well versus City in the past, but yeah, for a -4, I just don't think the value's there. Sorry. Yeah, I'd probably stick to Stones, even though he's not ready to play the first game. It's a tough one. I mean, at the end of the day, it is -4. Maybe you could just go Ake, yeah. I'd probably go Ake if I went for Stones. It's not the nicest position to be in, but it could be good. Is Doherty a good transfer for Cancelo? I think absolutely, especially if you can go Mitchell to Kane. Yeah, 100% go for it. Would you bench Bueno or Gabriel? I'd probably bench Gabriel. Start Andres / White or sell Trossard. I would sell Trossard. Sell Trossard for sure, because Andres and White aren't problems in your team, so you really want to get Trossard out of your team, who's a problem, because right now you can already see this Brighton team has a lot of depth, has a lot of rotation. They're incorporating players like McAllister back into the team, and even before McAllister was playing, you already saw that Trossard wasn't in the team in the starting 11 recently, so I think Trossard has to go first. Is Ake going to play in both? I would say so, yes. -4 for Tony for remove Martial. I wouldn't do that. Arnold said sell Trossard. -4. I would go for -4 to Shaw. Notorious. I'd probably go for that wrestle, because like I've gone for Shaw. I think it makes sense now that Stones is out, and just thinking about it, United have a high chance of double game week 22. Maybe you have to force the transfer next week to make your bench a little bit better, make your defense a little bit better. I've got Trent, and maybe you have Trent too. So I think when we're thinking about next week, you've got Trippier who can play, you've got Trent who can play. And you probably want to play White next week over Shaw. And I think that's a good enough position to be in. City, of course, will have a much lovely game in terms of Wolves. So I think Ake makes sense in terms of the short term, because technically, if you want to look at City and say, okay, their double isn't the best, United probably have a better double. But then I like the attacking aspect of Shaw that much more. Do you know what the scoop is on Stones? I mean, there's no scoop. Pep pretty much confirmed that he's not going to play the first game. I'll be looking at Twitter in a second. Am I triple captaining? 100% I am. Best 7.1 midfielder or less, except for Rashford, Martinelli. I'd probably say it's Odegaard. Yeah. I don't know if it's just you, but I think it seems like it's okay. I haven't dropped any frames on my end, Savage, so let me know. -8 for Salah to KDB, Darwin to Kane. I like Darwin to Kane. I don't know if you need to go Salah to KDB for a hit. So I would prioritize the Darwin to Kane move. We'll just go for a -4 to Ake, I guess, from Stones. Yeah, fair enough, Notorious. Yeah, because you're thinking about the Wolves transfer. So I think worst case scenario, right? Let's say if Ake plays both games and maybe he doesn't keep clean sheets. Hopefully he scores a goal for you, does something well. Look, the best case scenario at least is that double game week. In game week 21, you've got Ake versus Wolves, which is a much better fixture than, let's say, Shaw versus Arsenal. De Bruyne or Kane, who would you prioritize? I would probably prioritize Kane, because a lot of people are moving from Salah to De Bruyne. And I think the reason why I say don't go away from Salah is because you still have a chance that he doubles next week. Second of all, Salah's super interesting because he gets to start, he's ready to play, and probably you're going out of Kane, or you're going to Kane from someone like Darwin, which I think the ceiling isn't super high for Darwin. Of course, he seems like he might not even play the game. So I'd probably go Kane and prioritize him. What kind of hits are you guys taking this week? I'm just kind of curious. I'm probably going to run a little bit of a poll here, or transfers this week. So I just want to see what kind of options you guys have gone for. -8 or 12. That's super ambitious. I guess if you've gone for a -12, you can probably vote for -8 as well, because technically you've gone for that as well. Lots of hits coming in. One roll. I'm quite jealous of whoever's in a position to actually go for a roll. That seems pretty outrageous. You did Mitrovic to Kane. Yeah, that's totally fair. Cancelo to Lewis and Mitrovic to Kane. I like those transfers. Ward or Kepa. I'd probably pay Kepa. I'm playing Kepa myself. -4. Yeah. Seems like a lot of people are in that kind of camp where they've taken hits, and that's totally sensible. At the end of the day, you've got a double game week, so you've got good coverage. What do you think of starting? I think it's close, Harry. Any reason why you prefer Ward over Kepa? Is it just because Chelsea have been so poor lately? I think, first of all, what I would say is that, you know, we've seen Leicester with similar results to Chelsea. And then I think the actual matchup on paper isn't too different, right? Because Crystal Palace have been pretty poor from the attacking point of view. I know Nottingham Forest are a team that we consider to be very, very poor, but Leicester, I mean, pretty dismaying, I would say, so far. A lot of mistakes being made, even losing in the FL Cup as well to Newcastle. Of course, Newcastle, super respectable team, but yeah, I would say Leicester have looked not particularly good, and I think they were very lucky to actually get some of the clean sheets that they did before the World Cup restart. So that's my concern there. Oh, Jack, you're going for a huge bet on Tete to Doherty. Well, I know you're a Spurs fan, aren't you? So that's nice that you actually get to go for a player in your club who's not Emerson as well. Hey Dan, hope you're doing well. Start Dean or Gabriel? I'd probably start Dean. You have to sell Trossard, that's totally fine. Playing a 4-4-3, that's fine. Cuckoo out for -4. Ryan J. Start Rodrigo Martinez. And I know you're a Barcelona fan too, so that's double nice, isn't it? Because the Emerson joke is a little bit of like two birds, one stone, really. Start Rodrigo Martinelli. I'd probably start Rodrigo, actually. Almiron versus Martinelli. I'd probably play Odegaard. I'd probably bench Martinelli because you want to diversify your risk a little bit, right? So Almiron has high ownership, Martinelli has high ownership, but I think Odegaard's exceptionally interesting. So I'd probably go for Odegaard plus Almiron. Cancelo or Lewis? What do you mean by Cancelo or Lewis? Are you keeping Cancelo in your team? Or because I wouldn't transfer into Cancelo if that's your question. But if you want to go into Lewis, then that seems sensible if that's your kind of way to going for someone like Kane. But I would probably prioritize on Ake. Would you start Kepa or Ward? I'd start Kepa and I'd start Bueno. Probably the way I'd go around it. But actually, in reality, maybe I would actually go for Ward and Apilicueta. Just thinking about that again. Would you go Cancelo to another City defender if you want to diversify? If you wanted purely expected value, I think you'd actually go double Chelsea. Your 1 year, one birthday. Honestly, Hojak, I think you actually might be one of the first members on the channel. So thank you so much, of course, for being a 1 year, 1 month member. Really appreciate it. And I hope you're doing well just in general in life and whatever. Sometimes following you on Twitter. So I know you've been kind of like looking at some pretty cool things to do with your life lately and updating yourself on Twitter. So I have been reading as well, stalking a little bit from time to time. So hope you're doing well. Cancelo really fell off. Absolutely, he did. Stones to Ake for me is the transfer. Do you think Mitrovic will score? Why not take a -4 for Tony? Well, it's not purely just about this game week, right? Because first of all, I think Tony could get suspended by the FA. I don't know what's the situation there. And then second of all, I think Mitrovic is pretty much one of the most fixture-proof assets in the team. And I think a lot of people are investing heavily into the Newcastle defense, and I'm kind of hoping that Mitrovic does haul, because that's possible, especially now that Fulham are one of the top attacks in the team, in the Premier League, and that's actually something we've seen all season long, really. He's also fit and rested, so that's kind of like a nice little benefit, right? Where Mitrovic has actually skipped the 2 fixtures previously. BoJack Horseman is also a fantastic TV show as well, and Hojack Horseman, potentially a better name. I think you've changed it. Maybe, sorry, I've actually misread that. I thought you changed your name a little bit to Borstman to have a little bit more of a Germanic twist, but that's not the case. I just misread that. Play Robertson or White. I'd probably go for Robertson for sure. Salah to KDB for -4. Yeah, I would go for that. It's not necessary, but I don't think there's actually too much expected value lost for Salah to KDB, and we still haven't got a confirmation that they show Boondocks. Yeah, I'll check it out, Jay Wavy. Appreciate that suggestion. I'll definitely have a look at that because I do really love BoJack as a show. Will I transfer out Saka? Absolutely not. I don't think Arteta even confirmed that he was out, as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong though, but I don't think that's the case. Cancelo to Ake, I think, makes the most sense if you don't have Shaw this week. I'm just responding to a Twitter question. I think that's the most sensible transfer, frankly. Of course, you can go for Doherty if you want to go a little bit more differential, but really, those fixtures for Tottenham are very tough. And of course, I think it makes sense to go Doherty if you're a Tottenham fan, because kind of like double-edged sword there. Why triple captain this week? We've talked about it actually, really, but you have a player like Holland who's shown that he's capable of scoring in some of the tougher fixtures. Although, has Martial been upgraded to an orange arrow? Why has that happened? Have I missed some additional Martial news? I don't think we got any additional news apart from the press conference, right? Because what Ten Hag said was that Dalot is not available, and he said that Anthony Martial trained this morning. So he just said that they need to wait and see how he's recovered, as far as I'm aware. So it seems like Martial should be at least able to play in the Crystal Palace game. So I really wouldn't take him out of my team. And Wan-Bissaka could play, of course, but you never know if he's going to play the second game. First time watching your stream? Oh, thank you so much, Ronson. Hope you're doing well. I'm 100% triple captain Holland. This is actually a live sort of like the still image that you're seeing is actually my team selection. I've just cropped it. This is actually my real FPL page. So I am absolutely 100% triple captaining Holland. Yeah, I can move around my little stream just to kind of prove it. This is my transfers screen. 0 free transfers left. But yeah, I am absolutely going for that play. I'm going to be triple captaining Holland. Locked in. Cancelo to Ake, Trossard to De Bruyne, Greenwood to Kane, Salah to Rodrigo, James to Shaw for -12. I wouldn't go for a -12, my friend. I'd probably think about just taking out Trossard. Maybe I would actually, I'd focus on taking Cancelo out, prioritizing Kane, and not necessarily going to KDB from Salah. I'd probably keep Salah if you can, and reduce it to a -8 if that's possible. Triple captain Holland's a dumb move. Don't do it. I mean, I don't think it's a dumb move. But I don't mind being dumb if that's your suggestion. You think Doherty is better than Cancelo? I mean, yes, but I think a lot of people are better than Cancelo. That's the problem. No double game week news. We sleep in. Yeah. No, thank you, Dan. No worries. I just think -12 is a little too aggressive. I think Salah's still a fantastic pick. Brighton have been a very, very open and aggressive team. Remember also that if you cast your mind back to the first game, the restart, where Brighton beat Southampton 3-1, Southampton actually built plenty of chances. And this Liverpool team is still creating a lot of chances, still one of the top 4 offenses in the league. Of course, they're one of the worst defenses in the league. That's the main reason why they're so far below the table compared to usual, but that's kind of the reality, I would say, and I'd probably prioritize on keeping Salah on my team because the attack for Liverpool looked great. And I know I look like a bit of a clown owning Trent after saying all of this, but Trent is also a bit of an offensive player, and also he has really, really nice fixtures for the next 3 game week run with Chelsea, Wolves, and Everton, because Chelsea are frankly terrible. And then the only tough game on the horizon after that is going to be Newcastle. So I'm going to enjoy Trent for a while. Hopefully he gets one of the doubles, and that's kind of my point of view on Trent. As far as Cancelo to Gabriel, I think it makes sense in the future, but I wouldn't go for Cancelo to Gabriel today. I'd probably go for Ake, frankly. So it seems like the consensus overall, though, was that people went for a -4. Be interesting to see actually what our ranks are at the start of the game week, because so many people have taken so many hits. I'm hoping to have a little bit green arrow at the start of the week, and I'm hoping it doesn't end with another red arrow once again. So that's kind of the plan here, why I've gone for a little bit more of a safer play. Still hoping that the Liverpool game will be booked in sometime in the future. Vote in tomorrow's free transfer. I think that's sensible. North London derby, don't expect clean sheets. Bench your whites. Yeah, I mean, I'm benching White, but look, the reality is I don't have the strongest team available. Thoughts on Tony for Nunez? I think Tony for Darwin makes sense if it's a free transfer, but not a kind of 2 free transfer move. So that's probably what I would do. I'm just gonna end the poll there because actually it's good to get some insights. Let's actually just do a poll on triple captaincies because I kind of want to get your feelings on what you guys are planning to triple captain. 1 minute to deadline. Absolutely. Force your transfers. A lot of resounding no's for the triple captaincy. That's understandable, but I still think it's a good move, the triple captaincy. I'm not going to complain. All the best to you guys as well if you guys don't have the triple captain on Holland. Thoughts on Martial to Tony -8? I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Why triple captain Holland this week and not on next level game week for City? I think Holland's simply a fixture-proof player, and I think he's shown that he's capable of scoring versus United. We've already seen it this season, specifically even when United actually had their kind of best starting four, I would say. Maybe you could argue that Malacia at the time was playing ahead of Shaw, so that's a big difference. Why am I playing Kepa over Ward? I still think they can keep a clean sheet versus Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace have been pretty terrible so far. Start Bueno or Walker? I'd probably start Walker. I mean, I think the beauty of it isn't, Jason, that you probably are playing Ward over Kepa, right? Maybe in your instance. So we'll see who's right. I'm happy to be wrong as well. FPL's all about having your own team. Cheers to all you guys. Hope you guys locked in your transfers. Was a pretty tense week actually for me because I was going to go for Stones. I think he would have been my priority transfer if he was still available, but him kind of being not really suspended, but kind of taken out of the mix by Pep today in the press conference pretty much forced my hand in terms of going for Shaw. And Shaw has absolutely killed me the last 3 weeks. I think he's pretty much the reason why I've been struggling in FPL, and I have to kind of own up to that mistake. It's mine and mine alone. So yeah, a lot of hits taken. Good luck to you guys who've taken some hits, and for you guys who played with a bit more of a patient, passive approach, good luck to you as well. All right, take care, everyone. Hope you guys have a lovely weekend and enjoy the football. Are you guys going to be watching the football games today, or are you kind of just saving it for tomorrow since the bigger fixtures are tomorrow? And Happy New Year to you guys as well. I'm not sure actually if I've done a deadline stream actually post the new year, but yeah. My transfers this week: Kulusevski and Darwin. Ooh, that's a very differential move. But Kulusevski was actually proven to be fit, no? But I guess, yeah, your priority is just to go for Kane. That's fair enough. Today you're going to watch EuroLeague. Nice. And he's still living off the Salah 17-18 season. What do you mean he's still living off the Salah 17-18 season? What, has he captained Salah? Can't be, right? Well, anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. And I'm probably going to bounce now, but I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, as I said. So, take care. Never sell Salah. Honestly, I regret that I don't own Salah. So that's the